Okay, this is an idea for a simple bird feeding and drinking station. What happens is that there's like a trough. I've got a couple of examples here on each side, and two bottles, and at the bottom of each bottle there are two holes punctured right at the very bottom, and one just a couple of inches above that, so that when the birds drain or drink the water, or the water evaporates, it's refilled from the bottle, which I'll just demonstrate to you briefly now. If I get rid of some of that water, you'll see that bubbles start to come up as that water is replenished from the bottle. And I can show you that from here. There are two holes, one below the water line, and there it is coming out from the lower hole. And you probably can't see it, but air is going in and bubbles are coming up from the higher hole. I don't know how clear one can see that, but anyway, that's it. And while it's replenishing, those bubbles will continue to rise. I put a few seeds in the bottom of the tray just to attract extra birds. They come along, stick their heads into the water and retrieve the seeds. This is a slightly longer trough just here, and the same principle applies. I've got a few bird feeders. Here's one, standard, and that attracts a lot of birds. I've got a variety of seeds in there. As you can see, they're layered a bit, and we do have problems with squirrels, so they come along and they can completely empty that in a day, or perhaps a couple of days. So I've attached to the line above it a baffle, what we call a squirrel baffle, and that's it. And they struggle along the line from over there in the tree, and they get to this point and they can't get past it, and they sort of drop off and in frustration rush off and go somewhere else. So that's one of the feeders, surrounded by, it's actually got glass, or plastic glass around it so that it keeps dry. And the other one is, or the other two are over here. Same principle, with a baffle above each one to frustrate the squirrels. Some birds do try and, some larger birds like crows and things, not crows, magpies and things, try to get seed from there. And pigeons attempt to it as well, but it doesn't work with them. So from this angle you can see the three bird feeders I've got in this part of the garden. The baffles, one baffle in the distance, and these two just where I'm standing. While I've been talking, this is still bubbling away, getting slower and slower as the water level rises to the surface level in the tray. That will probably stop in a few minutes. And if you have the holes drilled properly in the right position, especially the top one, which I can try and show you here, it's just about there, the actual bubbles coming out of that, and that's slightly above the waterline, not below it, it's slightly above it, and the difference in pressure between the bottom and the top one encourages this whole system to work. That's the principle, and it works very well. The water usually runs out, or starts to run out, or get a bit stale after a week or two, in which case I just empty the bottles out, give them a wash, and pop them back into those positions with a refill. and it's fresh water, and it seems to be quite popular with the birds. This is my larger bird feeder for a part of the garden where I get a lot of bird visitors, and the water goes down fairly rapidly if I'm using smaller bottles, and they come to here particularly and splash around, wash, drink, and appear to be quite happy. Now, in this one I drilled a hole slightly too high, so what I've done is I've put a little stick in there to stop that leaking. If I do this, as I'll show you, you see, even though the water level is high enough, this is still dripping, this is still bubbling up, and the water's coming out, and that would completely drain the tank without stopping if I didn't have that particular stick in there or twig in there. I'll just pop it back. There's another hole just below that one. Probably can't see it. But that lasts up to 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the amount of birds that come to visit. And if it starts to look a bit stale, then I change that water. It looks slightly green in this picture, and but the birds don't seem to mind that. They're used to water that's a bit brackish, and they probably think, well, if you clean it too much, they don't like the taste. It's a bit too plain for them. I just use a sharp pointer like this to puncture the holes. 2 holes is all it takes. It's a bit bigger than a pinhole, and I just simply puncture down here, one about there, and one below right at the very bottom of the bottle, right down there. So it's permanently underwater. The other one is slightly, not this wooden one with a wooden peg in it, but the one that's working properly is about there, and it's just above the level of the water. Surface tension seems to stop it pouring out and emptying this whole process. Now, the simplicity of this system means that you don't need anything else for it to run naturally. There's no tubes or tanks apart from the bottles, and everything is looked after. The food, where the birds are feeding, and the water tanks, they're in sunlight, and they come to environments like this and clearly benefit from it. So that's my bird feeding and ablution system. Seems to work quite well. Attracts bird life, insect life. Flowers and things are growing around here, plenty of growth, and the birds are quite happy to be darting in and out of bushes to pick up some seeds and then disappear again for a few minutes. So that's about it for the moment. If you have any ideas or suggestions, I'm always available. I'll put something up on the site. I forgot to add that in London, in Greater London, and probably many places elsewhere, rats abound everywhere. So I do have rat traps around. Here's an example of one of them. Didn't catch a rat this night, but I usually at certain times catch up to 3 or 2 rats a day. And I pick them up and I put them on the lawn or in that area, and within one day the crows, the magpies and the occasional occasional bird of prey comes along and completely cleans the bodies away. and they obviously go away quite satisfied. Rather than putting it in a bin and chucking it away, it goes back to a sort of natural cycle. So everyone's happy, apart from the rats. And I get some pretty large ones, and small ones as well. The trap seems to work very well. Here's another trap. Also caught nothing in this one, but they may have gone elsewhere for a holiday or something, and they'll be back in large numbers. I might try to show you a few photographs of rats that I've caught in the past, but if you're squeamish you might not like these pictures, but it just shows how effective the rat traps are.